Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today we're taking a look at Bitcoin in 2025.
Yeah, 2025.
Yeah.
And we've got a really interesting mix of sources to pull from today. So
Yeah.
we've got news articles about some of the major events happening in the Bitcoin world.
Right.
We've got personal stories about people whose lives have been impacted by Bitcoin in some pretty huge ways.
Yeah, some pretty wild swings for sure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Some really big financial swings.
Yeah.
We've got even just glimpses into how Bitcoin is being used in everyday life.
It's becoming more and more a part of our world, isn't it?
It really is. It's everywhere you look now. So
Yeah.
remember back in 2021 when Bitcoin was all over the news, everybody was talking about
Oh
it.
yeah, it was the hot topic.
It was the thing, yeah.
Yeah.
So get ready for an update because things have gotten even more interesting.
Oh yeah, things have definitely evolved since then.
So first stop, Washington, D.C.
Mhm.
On March 7th, 2025, the White House held a summit focused entirely on Bitcoin.
Wow, a whole summit.
A whole summit, yep. And they announced plans for a U.S. Bitcoin reserve.
Basically, it's like a digital Fort Knox,
Okay.
and it's going to be stocked with Bitcoin that's been seized in criminal investigations, so no taxpayer money involved.
So this move raises some big questions. I think, this trigger other nations to follow suit,
Yeah.
lead to like a global shift in reserve assets.
Right. Could it give governments too much control over Bitcoin, though?
That's the other side of the coin, isn't it?
Right, exactly.
It kind of contradicts that whole decentralized nature of Bitcoin in the first place.
Yeah, it's a tough balance.
Yeah, it is.
So speaking of criminal investigations, this brings us to the story of Heather Morgan and Ilya Lichtenstein, the Bitcoin Bonnie and Clyde.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about them.
Back in 2016, they pulled off this massive heist. They stole 3.5 billion pounds from the Bitfinex exchange.
Wow, 3.5 billion. That's insane.
It's a crazy story, right?
Their story is just wild. It really shows the allure and the danger of the crypto world.
It really does. So Morgan, she was this quirky rapper influencer posting these weird videos online, and then Lichtenstein was the tech-savvy hacker behind the scenes.
So they were like this unlikely duo.
Yeah, totally. And for years, they managed to fly under the radar. They were living this seemingly normal life
Wow.
while they were secretly laundering billions of dollars in Bitcoin.
That's incredible.
It really is a crazy story.
Yeah.
So their case, it really shows you the challenges that law enforcement faces, right,
Yeah.
when they're trying to track cryptocurrency transactions.
It's a whole new world for them.
It really is. And it also shows the need for really strong cybersecurity measures.
Absolutely.
And it makes you wonder, what lessons can we learn from this to make sure that our Bitcoin is stored securely in this digital world?
That's the key takeaway for sure.
Okay, so now let's talk about Bitcoin as an investment.
Yeah.
Remember Odell Beckham Jr., the NFL star?
Oh, yeah, of course.
He famously took his entire 2021 salary in Bitcoin.
That was a bold move, wasn't it?
Oh, it was a huge risk at the time. It was worth $750,000. Then came the crypto winter and the value just plummeted. But get this, now it's worth over $1.1 million.
Wow, talk about a roller coaster.
I know, right up and down, Beckham's story really highlights how unpredictable the crypto market can be.
Absolutely. It's high risk, high reward.
Yeah, you got to be ready for anything. And then you've got the story of James Howells.
Who's that?
He accidentally threw away a hard drive back in 2012
Oh, no.
with 8,000 Bitcoins on it.
You're kidding?
Nope, that hard drive is now sitting in a landfill somewhere,
No way.
and it's worth an estimated 569 million pounds.
Oh, my goodness.
He's fighting to dig it up, but the council won't let him.
Wow. That's just heartbreaking.
I know, it's really bad luck, right?
It really makes you think about ownership in the digital world, doesn't it?
It really does.
What happens when tangible assets like a hard drive
Right.
hold the keys to these intangible fortunes?
Yeah.
How do property laws even apply in those situations?
It's a wild legal and philosophical dilemma.
It is.
For sure.
Yeah.
We've seen how Bitcoin's impacting governments and individuals, but what about the bigger picture? Like, how is Bitcoin changing entire industries?
Yeah, it's definitely not just about buying and selling Bitcoin anymore.
Right. Right.
We're seeing the technology behind it, blockchain being used in all sorts of new ways.
Okay, so let's start with an industry that's been making a lot of headlines lately, the gaming industry.
Yeah, the gaming world is going crazy for blockchain right now.
So what's happening there?
Well, there's this huge surge in blockchain-based games where players actually own their in-game assets.
Oh, wow. So like what kind of assets are we
Things
talking?
like rare items, weapons, skins, even virtual land.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
And these assets, they can be traded or sold just like any other cryptocurrency.
So it's like a whole new level of ownership in gaming.
Exactly. It's a huge shift from traditional games where you're basically just renting your digital items.
Yeah, that's true. You never really own anything in most games.
Right. So this gives players more control and even a way to potentially make real money from their gaming skills.
That's pretty amazing. But I guess it also raises some questions about the value of these digital assets, right?
For sure. Like what happens if a game shuts down?
Right.
Or what if the value of the in-game currency crashes?
Yeah. How do you protect players and their investments in this new digital landscape?
Those are some of the challenges that need to be addressed.
Yeah, it's a whole new world.
It is.
Okay, so moving on from gaming, let's talk about another industry that's being disrupted by Bitcoin, supply chain management.
Oh, yeah. Blockchain is perfect for that.
How so?
Well, it can track products from their origin all the way to the consumer,
Right.
It creates a really transparent and accountable system.
So, like, I could scan a QR code on a product and see its entire journey?
Yeah, exactly. You could see where your coffee beans came from or your clothes or anything, really.
That's pretty cool.
It helps ensure ethical sourcing combats counterfeiting, improves efficiency.
It sounds like a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, it definitely has the potential. But there are challenges, of course.
Right.
Well, getting everyone in a supply chain to adopt blockchain technology is a huge task.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And then there are privacy concerns.
Yeah.
Who has access to all this data and how is it being used?
Those are some valid points.
Definitely things to consider.
So let's shift gears a bit and talk about Bitcoin and financial inclusion.
Right.
One of the big promises of Bitcoin is that it can provide access to financial services for people who don't have traditional bank accounts.
Right, especially in developing countries where traditional banking systems are limited.
So how could Bitcoin help?
Well, it could give people control over their own finances. They wouldn't have to rely on banks or other institutions.
That's a really empowering idea, but I've also heard concerns that Bitcoin could actually make inequality worse.
Yeah, that's a valid concern. If only a small percentage of the population has access to technology and knowledge about cryptocurrency, then the gap between the haves and have-nots could widen.
So it's a double-edged sword in a way.
It is. It's a complex issue. We've talked about how Bitcoin is impacting industries, but let's not forget about the human element. Behind all the technology and the financial jargon, there are real people whose lives are being changed by Bitcoin.
That's so true.
Some people have made fortunes, others have lost everything.
Yeah, it's a real roller coaster.
It is. There are stories of innovation, creativity, even philanthropy.
Oh, yeah, like the Pineapple Fund?
Yeah, that was amazing.
Yeah.
An anonymous donor gave away millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin to charities.
It's inspiring to see Bitcoin being used for good like that.
It shows the potential for positive change, but there are also cautionary tales that remind us to be responsible.
Absolutely.
Transparency is key in the cryptocurrency industry.
Yeah, it's important to remember that Bitcoin is more than just an abstract concept. It's a technology that's affecting people's lives all over the world.
And those stories are just going to keep getting more interesting as Bitcoin evolves.
So we've looked at the impact of Bitcoin on industries, the human stories behind it all, but the big question remains, what does the future hold for Bitcoin?
That's what we'll try to answer in our final part. Will it become mainstream? Will governments embrace it or crack down on it?
Right. What role will Bitcoin play in the metaverse and the future of the internet?
Lots to discuss.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, looking at how Bitcoin is impacting governments and industries and even individual people. But now it's time to look ahead. What does the future hold for Bitcoin?
Yeah, predicting the future is always tricky.
Always, yeah.
But, we can look at the trends. We can make some educated guesses.
Okay, so let's start with that big question. Will Bitcoin become a mainstream form of payment?
Well, we're already seeing some pretty promising signs, right?
Yeah.
You got major retailers, Amazon, Walmart, they're accepting Bitcoin.
Uh-huh.
Social media platforms are integrating Bitcoin tipping payments.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty big steps towards mainstream adoption.
They are, but are they enough? I mean, there's still some pretty big hurdles to overcome, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, volatility is a big one.
Okay.
Imagine you're trying to buy a cup of coffee with Bitcoin,
Right.
and the price fluctuates wildly in just a few minutes.
Yeah.
That's not exactly a smooth transaction.
No, not at all.
It creates a lot of uncertainty for both the buyer and the seller.
Makes sense.
And then there's the issue of scalability.
Right.
The Bitcoin network can only process a certain number of transactions per second.
Okay.
So if Bitcoin were to become as widely used as, say, Visa or MasterCard,
Yeah.
the network would need a major upgrade to handle that volume.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about regulations.
Oh, yeah. The regulatory landscape is a big one.
Governments all over the world are still trying to figure out how to classify and regulate Bitcoin.
Exactly. Some are more open to it than others.
Right.
So it creates a lot of uncertainty for businesses and investors.
Yeah. It's like a patchwork of regulations that could really hold Bitcoin back.
It could. But even with these challenges, the potential is huge. As technology improves and awareness grows, I think we could see Bitcoin becoming a much more widely accepted form of payment.
Okay, so what about the role of governments in all of this? Will they embrace Bitcoin or will they try to control it?
That's a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
We've seen the U.S. government taking steps to create a Bitcoin reserve.
Right.
And the European Central Bank is exploring a digital euro. So these actions could be seen as signs of acceptance.
Right.
But they could also be seen as attempts to compete with or even control Bitcoin.
It's like they're trying to figure out where they fit in.
Yeah, they're trying to adapt to this new form of currency.
Right.
Some governments might see Bitcoin as a threat to their own monetary systems.
Yeah.
And they might try to impose restrictions or even ban it outright.
Right.
Others might see it as an opportunity.
Okay.
A way to attract investment, promote innovation, streamline their financial systems.
So it really varies from country to country.
It does. It's a complex geopolitical situation.
All right, so let's venture even further into the future. How might Bitcoin play a role in the metaverse and the future of the internet?
Ooh, the metaverse. That's a whole other world.
It is.
So the metaverse is, it's this immersive virtual world.
Right.
People can interact with each other with digital objects. It's becoming really popular. And Bitcoin, with its decentralized and secure nature, could become the currency of this new digital realm.
So we could be buying virtual real estate trading digital assets all using Bitcoin within the metaverse.
Exactly. It could create a whole new economy.
Wow.
One that's free from the control of traditional financial institutions.
It's like a whole new frontier.
It is. And as the internet itself becomes more decentralized, Bitcoin could play a vital role in facilitating transactions and empowering users.
So you're talking about like a peer-to-peer internet.
Yeah, where you don't need intermediaries like banks or tech companies to handle your money.
It's a vision of a more open and equitable internet.
It's exactly where users have more control over their own data and their own finances.
That's a really compelling vision, but we have to acknowledge that there are still a lot of challenges and uncertainties, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
We don't know for sure how the metaverse will evolve or what role Bitcoin will ultimately play.
That's the exciting part, though, isn't it?
It is.
The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, we're at a really interesting point in time.
We are. It's a pivotal moment.
The evolution of technology and finance.
And Bitcoin is right at the forefront of it all.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive into Bitcoin in 2025, we're left with more questions than answers. But that's okay. That's what exploration is all about, right?
It is. It sparks our curiosity. It makes us think critically about the world around us.
Exactly.
If this deep dive has made you curious about Bitcoin, I encourage you to keep learning, keep questioning, keep exploring.
Yeah. The future's not set in stone.
Nope. It's up to all of us to shape it.
Well said. Well said. So who knows? Maybe in a few years we'll be back for another deep dive to see how the world of Bitcoin has evolved.
I'd love that.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Please help support the channel by subscribing, liking, and commenting.